So I'm wondering, does meditation make anyone else feel like this? It really doesn't suit me. I've undergone a lot of years of trial and error with it, and to be honest, every single time I quickly run into a pretty major pothole, and I'm just going to run through that now. So my history with it kind of starts back in 2015, and believe it or not, it's a kind of funny and mundane reason as to why I got into it. I was watching that Daredevil show, season 1 of it, the one with Charlie Cox, I think his name is, and it was on Netflix in 2015, and a pretty cool show. There was a lot of elements I liked about that first season, but I remember being struck by the fact that he practiced meditation and it seemed to go along with his crime fighting, and he thought it helped him heal quicker, make better decisions in the moment, what have you. And at that age, I think it was like 20 years old or something when that came out, I thought, hey, this is something you can do for free at home whenever you want. Cool. Like, as it's kind of at that age, getting into the idea of like improving myself or trying to get my act together in certain ways, and that seemed to really fit in with that. So I immediately embarked on a meditation journey where I think I started like, say, 10 minutes a day or what have you, and it was kind of in the lead up. It was a tricky period for me because it was in the lead up to my exams I had in college that year, so it was quite a busy time. And I remember my dog, old dog, had kind of gone blind and a bit crazy, and sadly he actually kind of savaged me in the garden one day, and heartbreakingly had to put him down, and this was like the day before my exam, so there was like a load of emotional stuff going on. It's fucking heartbroken, but I was thinking, hey, you know, this meditation stuff might help me out here. And so yeah, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, I kind of freestyled it myself. And you know, in those early days it was crazy, but it seemed to fucking work. I remember going into exams, and like this was like me doing it for like a week or two, entering like what felt like flow states. Like, now don't get me wrong, I was a good student and I was very prepared for the exams. I think would have done well anyway, but I remember like, because my hand was so injured from the dog attack, I had to go to do or I had to use kind of special exam rooms where I had access to keyboard rather than pen and paper, and I was given a few minutes extra to like sit the exam in case of, I guess, tech difficulties or something. But actually I can type faster than I write, so that made it really like unique experience in like way. It was actually like a cool set of exams, I always think, looking back in hindsight. But anyway, like there was a lot of weird things in those exams that I nearly attribute to the meditation, because it was like I was pulling up knowledge I like instinctively knew I normally wouldn't have remembered, and I felt really switched on. I was thinking, holy shit, this thing works like magic, this is really cool. And there were other things then that kind of happened with meditation too. Like, I very quickly started getting, I didn't really do any reading into meditation or anything, I just kind of freestyled it, but I very quickly started getting like more of a perspective on my thoughts and like, say, emotions, and was able to kind of regulate my response to things better and more like efficiently. And I was also getting like, I don't know if metaphysical is the right word, but nearly mystical experiences. Like, I felt like I was getting a sense of the greater architecture of the world, and I was experiencing and noticing synchronicities and things like that. And at the time, this was all quite new to me. My attitude was nearly like that of someone, leveling up in life, or getting a little miniature superpower or something. I thought it was really cool. I was like, this is going to give me an edge on everyone doing this. And so it was quite like a positive start, and things went fine. And then sometime like around that year, I took up yoga as well, which obviously aligns a lot with meditation. And again, it was just because I thought it was a cool thing to do. I kind of fancied my teacher. She was like 10 years older than me, and I thought was really cute and a nice woman. But maybe that kept me going back as well. But anyway, I got into yoga pretty intensely. Well, relatively intensely. I went like once a week and practiced at home, but it became this new big hobby in my life anyway, going to yoga and doing kind of meditation. And I mean, I didn't go crazy, like become a monk or anything like that, but it was something, I kind of did pretty consistently, and it seems to work for me, Then as the years passed in college, kind of my early 20s, eventually the yoga kind of went by the wayside. The meditation kind of was on and off, but I always found if I kind of kept it up, it always seemed to, at least, I never got quite that strong effects of it I did in the early days. Again, maybe I just kind of, it became more routine, or I started to question it more or something, but it always felt kind of comforting to me. Like, I would always take it up around exam time, and it felt like a bit of an anchor, like something that helped regulate me. I kind of thought to myself, okay, it's going to give me some good luck, whatever, what have you. But kind of over the years, and I can't pinpoint when this change occurred, but something kind of started to shift with it, and it became something much more disturbing and actually much more upsetting for me. And the first time it was like in, I think, 2018, just after I'd moved out from home, and I did the Sam Harris app meditation. And I remember, like always with meditation, when I kind of locked into a routine, it was never subtle for me. I always felt quite profound changes quite quickly. It always really worked very quickly and very efficiently on me. But this time I remember this sense of like, it was like the world quickly became like hyper real. Like nearly like a feeling you would get if anyone has done like psychedelic drugs, or say a strong weed edible or something. I'm not saying I have a lot of experience with either of those things, but it was like that feeling where your kind of thoughts nearly dissolve and go off and you're very present and grounded, and I got that. And this, if you were to read online, is like something people seem to strive for, to try to achieve with meditation, and sometimes it seems like never achieve, or like takes a long time to. And this was something that clicked with me really early. Like I said, it always had a strong effect on me, but it was, and this is my point, the feeling was in no way positive for me. It was awful. It felt like my mind was being fucking scrambled or empty, like I was losing my identity. Feelings of huge anxiety and angst and lack of stability came up. The world seemed like a different place. I remember having this huge like awareness and feeling of like impending doom, and awareness of my own like death and mortality. And I guess in some ways there's an argument that, you know, this is just, that's a real thing. We all have to deal with that to some degree or another. Maybe it's healthy to comprehend it a bit in your life, but the older I get, this was not healthy. The level to which this caused me distress at that time, it's like it uprooted a really raw nerve in me that I was in no way capable of kind of handling kindly. And so I was in such a distress, it was nearly like a slight psychosis. Like I remember I started to question every facet of reality. Like I couldn't believe that we live in this world where like gravity is real and keeps us on the planet, and I can't believe we're all going to die and we're walking around getting jobs and going around in like awareness of that fact, but acting like normal day-to-day mundane things are fine. But like, and this all sounds like, you know, a sense of enlightenment or wisdom, but I just have to emphasize my emotional feelings were completely negative. I was getting no sense of peace from this. I was feeling distant from God, from the ideas that had always brought me comfort in life. I was feeling incredibly upset, and like there was a huge lack of stability. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be crying, and you know, I'd go about my day as normal as I could, but it was like verging on like these deep anxiety attacks, and I'd be thinking I feared so much for my sanity. And these are things I've been brushed up with before, so I'm sure it's something that's just to do with my makeup. I'm not saying this would happen with everyone, but it was absolutely a very distressing couple of weeks that meditation triggered. Now, I kind of reached out to my parents and was close friends, and fortunately, you know, they were kind of in support of me at that time, and I think that definitely helped. And you know, like with these things, you batten down the hatches. I stopped meditating within like 2 weeks. I'd kind of come back to normality, and kind of things carried on as they were. But the experience had kind of left me touched a little bit, and in some ways I guess there was kind of things that could have been beneficial from it. Like ever since that happened, I have a little bit less anxiety about the more mundane day-to-day things in life. But I think it also took me a little bit of my joy of life. Like it kind of removed me from the game of life a degree or two. You know, was it enlightenment, or was it a kind of glimmer behind a curtain I shouldn't have looked behind? This is what I think about it now, because it was incredibly distressing, and even talking about it now distresses me slightly. You know what I mean? So it's just something I think about. And here's the funny thing, as years pass and as you forget the feeling, we're kind of constantly bombarded with this messaging that meditation is really beneficial, it's good to be mindful, reduce stress, what have you. And the older I've gotten, naturally you get more responsibilities, more stresses in life, and that's fine, you know, that's part of the game of life. But I like a lot of people, I'm always searching, I guess, for that kind of anchor, like not a magic pill per se, but like something I can kind of pin my hat on and say, look, every day, no matter how it is, I do this thing and it regulates me, it grounds me, centers me, it's something I can go back to and get a feeling of confidence from, right? And I think that could be anything for people, but for whatever reason, meditation is what kind of creeps back into my life. And I think maybe I was just at a weird time, maybe I did it wrong, maybe I did this, maybe I did that, and I'll try it for a couple of days again, and lo and behold, like fucking clockwork, every time I do it, by day goddamn 2 or 3, I'm feeling these urges of like anger, like irritability at my wife, let's say, which would be unusual for me, or a feeling of irritation that normally I'd be able to kind of hold down or manage or let go of, but it lingers more, and I get these feelings of like existential angst and kind of dread. And the issue with these existential questions is I think they're legitimate questions. I think there is value in at least acknowledging and thinking about our own mortality and querying, you know, how little we know about the world. But at the same time, you query that too much or push it too much and you lose your ability to function in the world. And I could feel everything in my being reacting negatively to what was happening, what was happening to my psyche as soon as I start this meditation practice. And it is the most simple fucking follow your breath for 10 minutes practice. It's not anything more intense than that, but it always has this terribly negative effect on me. And I'm kind of talking about it now because I do this once a goddamn year for some reason. Again, you know, if I'm doing exams for something else at the moment, so it tends to pop up, I guess, as a crutch of sorts in periods of hard work or stress. I'm only noticing that pattern now as I'm talking to you on this, actually, which is interesting. But the same thing happens again. I actually had a horrible nightmare last night where like demons were like attacking me, and now I'm not going to put any legitimacy to that or go down too much of a path or rabbit hole in any of this, but again, it's just this pattern of wildly negative and disturbing effects on like my mental health, my psyche, my emotional regulation, and they're always brought up by meditation. To play devil's advocate, I guess, you know, I'm not an expert on meditation, but to people perhaps would make the argument, you know, maybe these are, as I said, legitimate questions. Maybe they're in my subconscious. Maybe these are feelings that I suppress to some degree day-to-day life, and meditation brings them up or unearths them. And that could be very well true. And I would be open to the idea that there's some merit in, you know, examining the subconscious or whatever. Like the whole, I know obviously this has been part of like psychotherapy for over a century, like Jung and Freud or whatever, you know, bring the unconscious to light, or it can kind of dictate your life. And I think there can be merit in, you know, fixing, say, compulsions or neurosis through self-examination. But the age I am now, thinking about it, I think that maybe needs to be something you do with someone who knows what they're doing, and in a careful and supported way, because whatever this meditation did, maybe it brought up too much shit at once, or maybe it brought up shit that wasn't even there, or I don't fucking know what, but it is not, sorry, it's not something I'm going to stick with. You have to just trust your warning signals a little bit, and you have to trust when something is not suiting you. And meditation just absolutely does not suit me. It has not suited me for years. And I guess I wanted to talk about this, and I've done research in like the last year or two on it, and I've seen other YouTube videos have discussed like the dangers of it. I found like Twitter threads and all, where people kind of with this kind of new age tip talk about the idea of meditation being like a demonic kind of practice, like you open yourself up to other forces. And that's an idea. I'm someone who's kind of terrified by ideas like that, but I don't want to go down too deep a kind of rabbit hole along that style of things. You know, it's not, I don't want this channel to be something that engages with stuff of that kind of woo-woo variety too intensely. But the fact is that I do find those ideas disturbing as well, and a lot of the negative effects people talk about and have brought up in these videos are ones I've experienced. So I think I just wanted to add my voice to those warning against the ideas of meditation. Now, if it suits you and you feel good with it, I don't feel in any way qualified to like warn you off, and I think people have every right to trust their own feelings. And if something feels good and makes you feel happier, I think that's great evidence that it suits you and you should continue to do it. I ultimately don't really know what meditation is, and that's something I kind of came to learn too from my small readings into, say, the religious aspects of it, and you know the thing in Buddhism or certain other religions, and the people who practice it in those religions, it's not, they don't practice it in the same way we do necessarily in the West. Like the physical practice might be the same, but a lot of education, there's a lot of kind of mentorship and guidance and awareness of the risks associated with it, and there's a clear purpose for it. My point being that in these religions, it's treated quite seriously from what I gather generally, and there's kind of long-standing practices around managing it and engaging with it, and perhaps that's nearly almost definitely for good reason. I think what we might have had here is that in the last 10-20 years in the West, this kind of very powerful spiritual practice has been kind of cherry-picked out of these Eastern religions and kind of dropped into the Western culture, which we're not really aligned perhaps with that, or maybe our minds or souls are a little bit different, or we're just less knowledgeable and trained in how to do it, and we're hitting big kind of issues or potholes with that. Like we've taken something and said, oh, maybe this will make me feel a bit calm after a stressful day at work, like a nice cup of tea after lunch if I'm a bit tired or something. It's like, oh great, follow my breath, how bad can that be? Maybe it'll improve my sleep. And we're kind of inadvertently, you know, opening up a door to a pretty intense spiritual journey without realizing it. And especially because we're more material minded in the West, we probably don't believe in a lot of it. Like, not speaking for anyone individually or myself, but perhaps as a whole, we think, oh, it's just regulating our CO2 with breath work, it calms us down, and then we have no explanation as to why we're suddenly beset with like existential terror or whatever. But I kind of said all I wanted to say. As I said, I wanted to add my voice to those kind of cautioning or advising a little bit of caution with the practice of meditation, because my experience with it has, I don't want to use the word profound, but it's been powerful. It absolutely is something that has strong noticeable effects on me. In the past, they've seemingly been somewhat positive, but the older I get, the more negative they are, and in fact, the more I reflect, the more suspicious I will be of them. I was going to say if I could go back, I would change it, but I don't like thinking like that. I think things happen and they happen and that's it. But certainly I'm almost making a reminder to myself now. I nearly feel foolish that I tried it again, because the same thing happened, like it always happens, and now I'm going to take stock, and I feel a bit more disturbed, a bit dysregulated, a little bit derealized, I suppose is the popular word now, and I'm going to take a few steps back, get back to my normal routine, please God, and fucking let this pass. And I don't think it's something I'm going to be doing again, you know what I mean? So yeah, meditation, tread with caution, and if it makes you feel bad, I think you realize you have the right to just drop it and stop. I don't think it obviously suits everybody, And I don't think you need to think you're crazy if you start feeling bad when you do it. And again, if it suits you, go for it. But I believe there are certainly people out there who it doesn't suit, and I think I'm one of them. And I'm probably going to never do it again for that basis. On that basis. Okay, peace out, bye. This is episode 4. Okay, peace out, bye.